Hey guys, this is Awesome John 22 coming today with another review. Today we are taking a look at some TMNT stuff from the new cartoon series still airing on Nickelodeon. We have looked at what I consider the epitome of the basic look turtles in this series, in the toy line for this series. Here we're taking a look at what is being called in the toy line the Mystic Turtles. This is from a single episode of the most recent season where, while living out in the woods outside of the city, the turtles don new armor and carry new weapons into the forest on vision quests, and each learn a bit about themselves, Leonardo more than the others, I think, and in preparation for heading back to the city and retaking it from the Krang. And I knew immediately when I saw this in the show that they were going to make toys of them, so I've been looking out for them to be on sale, because buying 4 figures at this size is pretty pricey, and luckily my local Target just had these on sale, and you should probably check yours too, because it might be the case for you too. A lot of toys right now are buy one get one 50% off, and these figures were on sale already in general. I managed to pick up all of these guys for like $24. It was pretty fantastic. As you can see here, if you know anything about that episode, you can see they are not quite screen accurate. They are wearing their own individual colors, whereas you can see the cloak on Leonardo and the hood on Raphael. That is about the color that all of these new armor pieces were in the actual episode. Here they seem to have gone with using their own, basic colors, which is perfectly fine and perfectly reasonable considering we only saw this armor once in the series. I mean, there's plenty of room for interpretation as far as I'm concerned. And something interesting they did, I want to look at Donatello first here. Something interesting they did in the episode is that you can see comes off pretty well on the toy while I fix his arm. Is Donatello the most tactical of the turtles, the smart one? Here has the biggest, heaviest, toughest weapons. He's carrying this giant battle axe thing that is just massively cool, and I really love it. And a sledgehammer, like an actual sledgehammer. Like, the detail on this is really good. And it's the kind, it looks enough like a sledgehammer that I can think of a few other figures near this size scale that I might want to give that to, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah, this, you can see, oh, knocked Raph over. Sorry, Raph. You can see it is very similar to the base mold. I don't have them handy to show off with it, but it is very similar to the base mold. New head sculpt with this skull mask thing, which is pretty nifty, and you can see his eyes behind it. And this whole thing is a separate piece. His lower arms appear to be new pieces, but I believe his upper arms and all of these pads and his feet are at least, very similar to the original molds. I believe his belt is from the original mold, as are both of his shell pieces. But he has this detailing on his legs. It makes me think that his legs are at least partial new molds, and his arms do not have the same articulation in the lower arm as they do on the basic, what are they called? The ones with the weapons stored in their shells. So it doesn't even have the same articulation as on the original run figure. So I'm assuming it's a brand new piece. In terms of articulation, he does have full range of articulation at the shoulder. And this will serve as articulation on all of them, because there is only one difference amongst all of them in the articulation. I will touch on that later. Full range of motion in the shoulder. Elbow is on a crunch, but it doesn't really detract from much, I don't think. His legs don't move in and out unless you turn them first, which I believe was the case on the other figures and did annoy me a little bit. Forward, back only slightly because of the shell, and about 45 degree at the knee, and a rotation below the knee, and his head is on a ball joint. This upper hood piece is separate from the piece around his shoulders. So it does offer its own separate articulation. And it looks really cool. It's a really cool looking figure. It does kind of bum me out that there are like no paint apps on this guy, though. It looks like his weapons are painted silver, which probably took quite a bit of what would have gone into the budget for paint apps here. But otherwise, it's just this purple plastic and the paint apps on his face that distinguish this figure, that make it, they give it more than just this standard green and purple. His shell, thankfully, is still fully painted, which is nice. And paint apps. Paint apps are going to be a recurring theme in this review, so let's just move on. You can see there's a couple weapons. Dang it, Raph. Here, I'll just move him up here since we're going to be talking about him next anyway. There's a couple weapons here sitting in front of the other figures. They each came with like 3 weapons and only marginal weapon storage. So Donnie comes with this little rope, which I do believe they actually made a pretty big deal of him carrying a wound-up rope in the episode. So it's kind of cool that this here was just this static piece of rolled-up rope. It does absolutely nothing. It doesn't store in the figure, so as far as I'm concerned, it's useless. Raph comes with this thing here, which looks like, it looks like a toy gun with a launchable missile, but it's really small and made of rubber. And I'm assuming this was originally supposed to be an action feature, but then it got downgraded, so I also don't pay much attention to this. I'm assuming it's supposed to be a flamethrower, since he's carrying gasoline on his back, and he did have a flamethrower in the episode. But it doesn't store on him anywhere, and it doesn't have any function, so I just kind of ignore it. He also comes with this spiked club thing, but it's also made of rubber, and this claw that is also made of rubber, and it's kind of annoying. It's made of the same soft rubber that you can see makes up his face piece, so that these little bits don't break when you rotate his head, as well as all of these, like this, and all of the cloak pieces for all the figures. And you can see on Raph we have a bit more remolding here in the upper arms than we had on the others, and he does have these like more extensive straps on his shoulders. And otherwise, articulation's the same, darker green color, just like we saw in the previous Raph figure we looked at from this toy line. A lot of the same pieces. I'm pretty sure his feet and legs are actually exactly the same as on the last figure we looked at. Again, I would have to have it in hand to really look at that. And if I find out that I'm wrong about these details, I'll do a update video. But really nice looking figure. He does still just have the arm crunch, which is kind of annoying. But he looks really cool. He looks really tough. I really like his face mask. I'm actually kind of curious to see if he has a more full head behind this one than Donatello does. It certainly looks like he does, and they just attached this face mask to it. But I'm not going to try to peel it off or anything. It looks good. Either way, it makes him look very scary. Put him back here. Move on to Michelangelo, who's the only one who has what I feel is adequate storage for all of his weapons. You can see he has these spikes on his feet. It's pretty cool. They're not painted. They're clearly detailed to look like wood. And nails, probably. I wish they'd been painted. I might paint them myself. He's got this really cool full mask that covers the top of his head, kind of like Raphael does in the recent movie. And he carries these, there's a name for these. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're these little claw spike thingies. They're pretty nifty. They're not as soft as Raph's weapons, thankfully. And I don't know why Raph's weapons are that soft. It's kind of weird. And he carries this big spiked club thing that also looks like wood with nails in it, and I don't know, pieces of sheet metal maybe. Very nicely detailed. And even though these little loops on his back are clearly meant to hold his the weapons that he's got in his hands right now, you can stick his club in there and it works just as well. I really like the color green on this guy. I really like his smirk. Looks pretty cool. Again, articulation is exactly the same on the last 2 figures we looked at. And overall, this one's probably my favorite out of the bunch. I just really like the aesthetic of this. Just very nice. So let's put him back here with his brothers and bring forward Leonardo. And while Leonardo is typically the coolest turtle, I mean, that's just a fact. Him and Raph kind of compete for that role, and Leonardo usually wins it. And he's the one you can see has the most normal face of the bunch, and he's got this really cool hooded cloak, and cloak is this soft rubbery plastic. And in terms of, like, his legs appear to be pretty standard. His arms appear to be pretty standard. He does have remolding in his hands and whatnot, but he has his full range of articulation here. He has rotation at the elbow, rotation at the wrist, things that we saw on the previous figures that we haven't seen on these other Mystics, and I'm really impressed by it. However, it seems that one of his legs is a bit longer than the other one, and I think I actually noticed this issue on the previous figures that I reviewed, but it wasn't obtrusive enough to really detract from the figure. Here it is. There's a couple poses you can get him standing in where he stands up straight, but it's difficult, and you can see there he looks pretty good, but it's just odd. I don't know if it's a design flaw or if it's just something that got past quality control or whatever, but I mean, as you can see, that's the primary problem. You have to kind of plan for it and get him standing at kind of this angle, which I guess kind of works, because at this point in the series he had a bum leg, and it could be kind of showing that he's favoring one leg, but it still sort of annoys me, and if it annoys me much more, I might try to fix it myself. You can see he has this little slot in his side that is made for holding his swords. However, he didn't really use his swords in this episode. He used the bow, which doesn't have arrows. I kind of wish we had gotten like a static quiver of arrows for him to have as an accessory rather than these swords. And they do remove, and they look nice, but they're a very different design than his normal swords in the show. That one kind of gets stuck. And they're in this brown plastic that makes them look like they're wood, and it's just silly. And I can't paint them, because if I paint them and try to stick them back in these tight sheaths, it'll just scrape the paint right off, or they just straight up won't fit. Just like they don't fit there. Jeez, it's ridiculous. So sadly, this is probably the first Leonardo figure I'm ever going to display without his swords, because as we saw when I brought him forward, storing his swords under here, I mean, it literally looks like he's cradling them against the side of his body. It just doesn't look right. So I put him off to the side. He has that similar aesthetic to the rest of them, with additional straps and buckles and things that aren't really painted or picked out. And I don't know, I may eventually go back and paint all these guys, and make them look a little, you know, I don't know if I'll do more accuracy to the show, or if I'll just paint in the details that are included here in a similar style to the way the toys handle it or not. I don't know which direction I'll go, if I even do it at all, because I don't mind the look of them as they are. I think they look perfectly fine. It's just they include all these molded details that I felt like really would have enhanced the look of the figure had they been picked out. Which is kind of the song I've been singing with a lot of figures lately, if you think about it. Transformers, Power Rangers, now Ninja Turtles. It just seems to be a trend, and yeah, it's frustrating, but if that's the way things are, it's the way things are. I can't really help it. But otherwise, they look good, and they look good together, and they invoke that episode of the show, which was quite a good episode. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And overall, I really like them, and I recommend, if you can find them for a decent price and you have enough interest, go ahead and pick them up. They're certainly a lot of fun. And that's really it for this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Help me out, like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you feel so inclined. In the description down below is links to all the other things I'm working on, including a link to my collections video. Check it out. If you see anything in it that you'd like me to review, let me know and I will see what I can do. This has been Awesome John 22, and I will talk to you guys later.